Welcome back to the Rhetoric Warriors podcast. We are canceling unethical persuaders right and left, taking them down. We're giving the good people the talk tools they need to beat the bad people. Right, Jimmy? Help
Yeah,
the good people.
man. Helping the good people is good. Last night, and this is why you need to be quick on your feet. This is why you need to pay attention to Dan, because last night I went into 7-Eleven. I quit smoking, so I went to buy a pack of smokes, and then as I was going to pay, the guy that was walking out, he mumbled. What do I have to do? N-word, blah blah blah, and then I wanted to be that social justice guy that was like, "Hey, man," and I said, "Hey, you get out of here before I punch your face in." Uh, what was that?
You really
Now
said
I'm the
that?
jerk. I did, and I like I even did one of these, and he ran out, and then the guy then, but like I said something stupid. Like if I would have said something
Yeah. You didn't have a
so
speech ready.
I didn't have it ready, man.
You
I
need
didn't
your
have
racist
my
speech ready.
encountering a racist just in an average
Yeah, those
trip
little
to the
micro
convenience.
scripts, man. Those are very important in life.
What would you have said? You wouldn't have
Uh,
said it. Would you have said anything, or would you just observed?
I typically I've lived in Los Angeles. I've lived in the South. I typically don't trust strangers.
Hmm.
They don't have a top end that I'm looking for, so I don't know what they're going to do. So I typically, I don't.
You
But
read the room.
let's
Yeah.
reset real quick and we'll get back into the
Okay.
story. So I'm Dr. Dan. I told you can jump in wherever you want. It's all good. I'm Dr. Dan, American rhetorician, late night comedy writer. And I bring on my friends and people I know. Right now, Jimmy, like I don't know when this is going to air, but you're like the 30th person I've interviewed.
Hmm.
Listen to this diversity:
Okay.
29 white people, 27 dudes, middle-aged white dudes.
Well, yeah.
I've got it's maybe I got to expand my friend list.
Well, and then where would you classify me? Because I'm like I'm an unknown quantity. People see me as they want to see me.
Yeah, I always thought you were Hispanic.
Yeah, I am. I mean, but half, dad's Atkins, first Atkins came, I think in the mid to late 1600s
Oh
to
yeah,
Pennsylvania.
that's white. That's bony
Preston
white.
Preston Atkins. As a matter of fact, mom just sent me a picture of some savings bonds that my grandmother bought me the day I was born, and I was named James Neil Atkins for 24 hours. Mom wanted to name me after Neil Diamond, and so I've got three savings bonds with James Neil Atkins on it.
Dude, you should so go back and rename yourself James Diamond Preston.
You're on to something.
So this
But
is, let me introduce you real quick. This is
okay.
my guest for the week. Friend of mine, we've known each other for quite a long time. It's self-described hairy bastard, as you can see, unless it's audio.
Mhm.
I think you have to start with that. It's a dominant visual. I know Jimmy from stand up first. Then he was my main producer on the Saturday show. It's a late night talk show we produced here in Austin. He's what I would call a true Austin Renaissance guy.
Mhm.
Like when I think of Austin, you're seamless.
Oh, well, thank you.
I mean, you
I mean,
just do a lot of the Austin cool things. You're a thrift store picker and reclaimer. You're a beer guy. You're just and you have some
I've
causes you
I-
do.
I've done a lot since I've been here for 10 years. Well, coming up on 11 years. I moved down here in 2010, fresh off getting off probation for growing weed, and
Where were you growing weed?
in Virginia, which was not the best state to be doing that.
Yeah, man, you don't want to do that stuff in the South.
No. And thank you. Because when I tell people I'm from Virginia, they call me a Yankee. And then I it just proves the point that the education system here in Texas is so great. That they don't know that Virginia was the capital of the Confederacy. But that's a battle that I will just lose.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. I'm a
Well,
Yankee.
I get called a Yankee from being from Kentucky.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The
Well,
Secretary of State of North Carolina literally heckled me during a stand-up show and called me a Yankee. I'm like, dude, yeah, you can draw the line wherever you want, but trust me, Kentucky's plenty redneck to join the South.
well, we all learned certain things in school, like when you're taking a standardized test. Anytime there was a qualifier, you could almost discount it. It was like every one of these is true, and then you'd be like, oh well, I'll discount that. But I've noticed going back to college recently, anytime I'd see one of those qualifiers, I would discount it. But sometimes I'd be tricked because they would be like, "Oh well, the answer is that," and I'd say, "But
Yeah.
there's different conditions, and so technically it's a wrong right answer." They didn't like to hear that.
Yeah, they don't
So
really I was a professor for almost 20 years and test psychology, like first of all, they don't teach professors anything about that stuff, like anything
mhm,
about teaching whatsoever. But you do like you're making the test and you're like, okay, should I be tricky here? Because I
right,
could be tricky. Or should
right,
I just let them get the answer because it's clearly the right answer?
right.
And I
Uh,
think
I
some people make that tricky choice, and I don't get it.
I like it when the answer was exactly the text in the book,
That's right.
or
That's the way I wrote tests because it's just a memorization exercise anyway.
right. And then, I failed miserably at my first go at college. I had a 0 GPA one semester at University of Alabama, and you got to
Well,
work
you were probably
hard.
still on the dean's list.
Well, not there.
It was
No,
the University of Alabama,
I got
so
I got a
you weren't
letter.
into the negatives.
They sent me a letter asking me to take the summer off and for an eternity, and then but luckily I can root for them every year still.
Now, why
Because
is
I
that? Why did you hit was it just too much partying? Was it just,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. My dream was radio. I'm kind of I'm my own worst enemy. So, once I want to do something and then I get into it and then I figure out what the next step is or how to get to the next level, um, if I'm at a level that I don't need to be at anymore, it's dumb to me. And so all I was doing was radio. I had a show at one point from like 11 o'clock and in the evening to 6 a.m. because nobody else would do those shifts. And that's at 6 a.m. when you're getting off the shift, that's prime mushroom picking time. And then, it's hard to make it to class after that kind
Oh,
of
what a
schedule.
great life, though. Like, if they'd have just known, like, you would have stayed there your whole life.
Yeah. WVUA. I'm Jimmy. I'm 40 and I'm still a freshman. Roll Tide.
There's a good screenplay we should write. The guy who figures out how to stay in college his whole life.
Forever.
Like,
Yeah.
legally, they can't get rid of him.
I would have done it at ACC, but then they said, well, you can't continue to get student loans at a 2-year university after 4 years. So, so they sent me down to
Well,
Texas
that's
State.
something else I love about Austin, and again, I think you kind of fit into this, like figuring out all the wrinkles in the social support system.
Mhm, mhm.
Like Austinites are great at that. It's all the sort of little guy versus government, but they're ingenious, and they always have been about finding ways of getting every dime they can from the government.
Right.
And you just have to admire it. It's done so well. I think that the musicians learned that in the past, like and they all try to collectivize and get some kind of health care. Just all those little guy politics.
Right. Well, and then but it's such a paradox because you ask the rich guy down the street, "Well, what should I do with my money?" And he'll be like, buy land. And then as soon as you do, get some sheep on there so you don't have to pay taxes for it and you can get the ag exemption. It's like, well, what do I do with the sheep? Do I sell them? No, just put them out there. You don't even have to give them shots. They'll die off eventually. But
Well, that's the thing about conservatives, right? Like they're just as dodgy about working the system.
oh
They
yeah,
talk about like morals and strongness and Christianity and then do the right, but they're just dodgy, dodgy, dodgy. Every human being's dodgy, dodgy, dodgy. So don't act like you're not doing it. That farm exemption is the biggest social, welfare program in the history of the United States.
Well, and then it gets even crazier when you just like you can get a tax exemption for just putting up a wind barrier, you know? And so I mean there's ways. I mean, look, I'm on TikTok and I follow a bunch of people that wear very little clothing and then do some dancing and stuff, but I also follow some financial gurus and some tax experts. And yeah, like if they taught us in high school, hey, you need to set yourself up as an S corp, and then all your other stupid companies, like, I mean, let's just go through some of the stupid companies that Jimmy has here. I've got my podcast. The least we could do. I got Jimmy's Bazaar, which is my eBay store. You can buy all the crap that you see here. Everything's for sale. We've got Ancient Astronaut Theorist University. We've got well, 40 Days of Tacos, which is about to launch again. So it's my taco Lent. They call me Taco Jesus. For 40 days, I eat nothing but tacos, and that's been going 6 years strong now. Um, there's so many other stupid ventures. Oh, workoffart.com. We were gonna have celebrities put colored talc in their crevasse and then blow out a design on a freshly painted canvas of, you know, like a primary color or something, and then auction it off to save people from ass cancer. So many things. If I would have set those up as LLCs under an S corp, I'd be a millionaire by now.
Why's that? Why would you be a millionaire?
I don't know. To some guy on TikTok said that's the way that the rich people are doing it. I think you have to have some sort of revenue stream. There has to be money coming in for the millions to start to accumulate. But I mean, it's all theory.
Well, again, this is perfect Austin. You know,
Right.
this kind of weird hyper intellectualism that it kind of goes off into its own little, you know, spiral somewhere over in the corner of the yard. And you're like, what are they thinking over there? You know, so there's a very intellectual slash pseudo intellectual slash really cool intellectual part of Austin.
Right.
Where he's working angles, they're doing things like that, like looking at finances, even though they don't know shit about taxes and all
Right.
that. And politics, you know, super popular in this city to talk about, and people to get into their Texas politics. And, you know, it's that kind of weird intellectualism that, you know, a hippie town has.
Right. Well, yeah, I'd been told my whole like adolescent and early adult life, you know, hey, you need to go to Austin. You'd love Austin. I don't know what it was about people. People would come to the Northern Virginia, DC area, meet me and be like, what are you doing here, man? You need to go to Austin.
Really?
I don't know what it was. They just saw the Peter Pan in me. Because they call this it's a city of Peter Pans. It's a town where you never have to grow up, and it's true. Like, I just traded a tooth cleaning for an alternator the other day, and so I mean, like, what there
Yeah, that's
are
it. That's
there
right.
are
That's it. Yeah.
yeah,
Put that
there's
on a t-shirt, Austin, where you can get your teeth cleaned for
for an
a used alternator.
for used parts. I mean, it was a remanufactured alternator too. So I mean, there's but
It'd probably
it's
been used as some kind of a bong at some point. Like
maybe
everything in Austin has been
it's
repurposed
been a
at some point for, you know,
probably a bong. Yeah.
you know, maybe that's why like I've never really fit in Austin. This is the fifth time I've lived in Austin. You know, I
Uh-huh.
went to school here in the mid 80s and got my master's degree. And then my ex-wife was from Baytown. I always wanted to live in Austin. So she brought us back here 2 or 3 different times. And Austin and I have never fit. Like I'm not, you know, I'm way too ambitious for Austin. I'm not Peter Pan. I've been grown
Right.
up since I was 5 years old.
Right.
So it's always been a mismatch. And I love Austin, you know, for what it is, but I'm always like, Austin, come on, you know, come on.
Uh, yeah. I mean, we missed the mark so many times here. I mean, just our highway system is a example of how little in control we are of our own destiny here in Austin. And coming from DC, you know, like I don't want to say I ran from DC, but I was sick of the politics, sick of the bad sports, and you know, and it's a melting pot. I used to say that DC was like a small microcosm of the rest of the country. I mean, you've got all the different races and religions and ethnic backgrounds and political beliefs and all the militaries are there, you know, because everybody wants to be close to the seat of the government. And then I moved to Austin, and it's just smaller version, but just more hicks and rednecks. And and I mean, it's been frustrating because we're all these people that get along. I mean, you're kind of in the fringe. You're up in South Dallas up there, and you got got
Well,
some.
I've wandered into what used to be, satellite suburbs, but now, the beating heart of Austin is just chewing up everything, from the center outward. So I'm not that far from downtown anymore.
But you've got one of them homeless hotels that they're thinking about buying one. I think kind of close to you, and we've got a homeless problem here in Austin, and it's not a homeless problem. We got a homeless problem in America, and but we decriminalized having a tent or sleeping on the street. Before, if you were homeless, you fell asleep on the street or passed out on the street, you'd get arrested, and then all of a sudden you've got a charge, and you got to go to court, and then you don't pay that bill, and then you've got a warrant, and then you've got another charge, and then it's this cycle, and criminalizing homelessness seems like a bad idea, but we need to do some stuff
We're going to
fix it.
criminalize you for not being capitalist enough.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's pretty much it, right?
I
Like you
mean,
were
we should go and talk these people through on how to set up an S corp and an LLC. I mean, get, my grandfather told me a story long ago about one of his friends from his barber shop who was homeless, and he went into the tax office to claim taxes on $53,000 that he had collected from panhandling, and they laughed him out of the office. And so that's when I realized, there's a segment of, well, look, I have you ever romanticized hobo culture? You ever thought about jumping a train?
romanticized it.
Yeah.
Well, not since I used to, watch Woody Guthrie and,
Mm,
David Carradine as Woody Guthrie and Bound for Glory.
yeah.
That whole 40s, coming out of the depression, the way that they sort of glamorized a little bit of that life, that
Yeah,
sort of
just
underculture on the rails.
jumping the rails. I mean, the days are gone. We can't hitchhike anymore. It's against the law.
Yep.
On the road, Kerouac, that story, we can't do that anymore. So we're stuck at home, and we've been stuck at home all year long, and I think people are just going crazy. Um, but what can we do? This is what I'd like to ask you about, because I'm seeing a shift. People are they're putting, it used to be God and country. Now it's just God, right? Forget country. It's just
Country's just in the way.
it's God is leading everything
God's
with
plenty. What do
some
you
of these.
mean? You need country and democracy.
You yeah, and then God is mad at us because this country isn't going in the way that God wants. I mean, how do you fight against that? How do you fight against an invisible a force that no one can quantify and is supposedly giving um instructions through Q?
Godness. Well, let me finish off something on
Okay,
homelessness
are
because
you
I
still
then
in the
we'll
intro? Did
then-
I?
yeah, then we'll jump over to God because I think like the homeless thing I think is kind of interesting from a persuasion standpoint.
Yeah.
Like they're persuaders. Like they stand at corners
Hmm.
and they have a presentation and they have a script and they have an act that they do.
Hmm.
Like I remember coming up to the intersection over there underneath I-35 at like 32nd Street over in
Hmm.
Hyde Park, and there's an intersection there where very popular with homeless, and there were three different people at on the different corners, and on this side was a guy with two dogs, and the
Right.
dogs looked kind of hungry, so that was pretty good. And then on the one right across from me was a guy with one leg in a army jacket. So I'm like, oh, okay, wounded vet.
Hmm.
That's pretty strong too. And you can get to all three corners because like you have to turn and stop and everything. And then on the far side was a woman in a wheelchair with no legs
Oh,
and a guy standing behind her missing an arm.
jeez.
And I'm like, yeah, I think that act wins. I think
The double pull at the heart. It's been tough. Well, like I mention that I'm quitting smoking? So lately I've been, like, gotta get a cigarette, and then I know it's 15 seconds. It's just 15 seconds. I can beat so I'm at the store. I buy a pack, and I'll grab two cigarettes, and then at the next corner, I'm giving the pack out. But that's it. I haven't had cash during the pandemic. I've been all credit, so no cash. And then also, it's a pandemic, man. I'm sorry. I feel bad for you, but I can't get
Right.
the COVID.
Well, but that's the thing. So these guys, they're literally little rhetoricians. They're literally having to build something to get, like there's a guy in the
But
intersection by my gym.
did you give them money?
What's that?
Did you
Yeah,
give the lady
I gave the I told you
the
I gave
lady
the
and the
best
dude?
act
Yeah, okay.
$5. I'm like, you guys have worked on this.
Hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate good production.
You don't know how hard it was to saw off these legs, sir. That's
But
what you don't want
like
to
you
hear.
look like I'm sitting there, and a lot of times I'm waiting. It's a long light, and so I get to review the show. And there's a guy who's way too kempt. Like he has a Van Dyke, has a kind of hip knit hat. His clothes are pretty clean. I'm like, I don't think you get it, man. I think you're not hitting the right emotional strings.
Well, every once in a while we'll see one hit the news. Like, remember the golden voice of that one guy? He was like, "Hey, how's it going? I'm
Yeah.
CABC and WNBC or KNBC, whatever. You know what I mean?"
Yeah, I remember that exactly because he rose himself up as a character outside of that morass of homeless, which we tend to just dump them all into the same thing, and we're like, oh, they're all the same. That they're there for the same reasons. They are homeless. That's their identity.
Mhm.
But when something flares up like that, you're like, oh, there's a human being in there. Look at that.
Right. Also a human being that had some flaws. So then once he was on the Today Show, he was picked up by all the news media. It was this great story everybody wanted to jump on, and then it was like he had priors, he had a rap sheet, and then they were like, "Oh, we got to take the car away from him now." And it's like, "No, don't- just give him the stuff and let him go away. Just stop paying attention to him. Let him live his life. Um
Well, and that's
and
part of like when you look at rhetoric. Rhetoric only gives people certain pathways to think in, certain grooves,
mhm,
and one is hero and villain.
yeah.
And if you look at our dominant politics right now, it's a really strong way of thinking about it. It explains a lot. But either you're a hero or you're a villain, and both sides are trying to shove the other side, off their log and over into the other thing. So like that guy's homeless, which is kind of neutral.
Right.
For certain times in history, that's become a villain. But until it becomes overriding and like they overwhelm the city, it's kind of they're neutral. You feel sorry for them,
Mhm.
sort of a victim space. But that guy got pulled out and moved over to hero. But then when they looked and saw the villain, taking off these villain boxes, then he just loses that status.
Yeah. Unfortunate. But I'm a cause and effect kind of guy. I understand that we've got a mess before us right now, but we need to work on not creating homeless and educating people or giving them a strong platform to and I'm not asking the government to raise our kids or anything, but the parents aren't doing it
No,
on the grand scale. And
yeah,
and
you
it's the
look at
blind.
effects. Like once you get to effects and you're trying to like deal with the symptoms of things and just cut them off and stop it without going back to cause. Yeah, you're in a losing game. Like it's just going to keep reinfusing itself. No matter how well you take care of the homeless or anything else, there's going to be more homeless coming because of the societal conditions that create that.
And if we create the greatest program for getting homeless off the street here in Austin, they will all start coming here. So we need to build a coalition of cities to, and Portland used to give, and I think they still do. They'll give you a free one-way bus ticket to anywhere in the country, and don't come back. That's effective, I guess, but it doesn't solve the problem. So
No,
I,
but it solves their problem. It doesn't solve the macro problem, but it eases their problem.
mhm.
Like I thought you were going to get to, we need to build a wall around Austin.
Oh man. Yeah. I don't know if it's appropriate, but Gene Getman, you remember Gene Getman? He used to
I
have
do.
this stupid joke that I told the mayor once and he didn't laugh at it. He said that Austin was like the Israel of Texas. It's a bunch of people that get along nice and live peaceably amongst themselves, and then they're surrounded by a bunch of bearded men with guns that want to kill them, right? And
Good joke.
it's a good joke, but it just always fell flat. It's a smart joke. You've got to understand what
That's a
Israel
solid
is.
joke.
Yeah,
I haven't
yeah,
heard that angle about Texas. That's
he,
solid.
yeah. It was the Jewish elite in Hollywood that was trying to keep that joke down, I think. So,
Well,
but
let's finish off homeless with this. Like one of
okay.
my favorite homeless experiences here in Austin was this was years ago. I saw a guy selling roses,
Uh-huh.
and uh, a Mercedes pulled up, was right in front of me, and I was right behind him, so I could hear them talking. The guy rolled down his window, and he's like, "Hey, man, how much for a rose?" And the guy's like, $3. And the guy in the Mercedes is like, "I'll give you $1." I'm like, "You are haggling with the homeless in a Mercedes, you scumbag."
The know your audience. The homeless guy missed a mark. He should have said $10. And, and then he would have talked him down to 5 and he would have made $2 more. It's
See, you should produce the homeless. That's kind of my point. Like rhetoricians produce every persuasion moment. So, like, did before you came on? No, were you telling the story before you came on, or about the 7-Eleven? Have you told that story?
I
Or
think yeah, I think I opened with that
okay,
story.
I can't
Yeah,
remember if we recorded that or not. But like rhetoricians want to look at every situation where there's a potential for either successfully persuading somebody or unsuccessfully, and they want to prep for it. Rhetoric is the ultimate monologue. It's the ultimate prepared communication. So like with the homeless guys, like even I always thought like they need producers, like write a good sign, like make sure you can read your sign, make sure your dog looks really pitiful. Like if you
mhm,
produce these guys, they'll make more money for themselves.
mhm,
So I
mhm.
think they need
There,
to take the courses.
there's a tipping scale where you can overdo it though.
Yep. You can't look like
Scary,
you got too much skill.
yeah, or scabies. So you gotta. It's a careful dance. I saw a kid that was out there in a suit, and he's like, he was in a suit coat, and he's like, don't have money for pants for a job interview, and that guy ended up on the news. So I. But there's the thing.
Like
People
who do
are
you
out.
give money to? Who do you choose? Like who
Uh,
gets your heart where you're like, are you just sort of you've already made the, commitment to helping the homeless and doesn't matter what they do, you'll help them. Like some people won't give money to the young because like that guy could work. Look at him,
yeah,
and
yeah.
some people, it's got to be a certain amount of tragedy in the presentation. So what about you? You
And
don't have any money to give. So what's
yeah, I don't have I haven't been carrying cash. And so it's been a year of not giving. I feel terrible.
can you
But I
Venmo the homeless? I think we should be
no,
able to Venmo the homeless.
you can't do that. If they had a QR code, they'd get some money.
It should be where you could take a picture of them.
That would be something.
And you've got the facial recognition. Well, they couldn't recognize your face with that much hair, but like a good facial recognition system, you could Venmo them a couple of bucks.
Yeah, but the system would come back on top of them because then they'd be getting income. They wouldn't be reporting it, and then the next thing you know, they're getting picked up on street corners for tax evasion in the next couple years because they're getting income. And then that's a lot of these people are on skid row. It can happen in a minute. There's a large percentage of this country that is 1 or 2 paychecks away from homelessness.
Which is
Now,
crazy. This country's so rich. And the idea that people that are citizens and are trying could be that close to poverty, that's insane.
it is insane. And then I
Like,
was
was that
watching.
way in Rome? Like, were the centurions like, hey, one stab wound, one catch one in the thigh, and we're gonna lose everything.
Well, I was just watching CNBC earlier today, watching the status of my GameStop stonks, and and they're arguing against the $15 minimum wage and how raising this guy is making six figures, maybe seven. He's on CNN, CNNBC, CN, whatever. He's on the damn talkie channels,
Yeah.
and he is telling us that $15 an hour is going to bankrupt the country. What are these companies going to do? They're going to, and this is supposed to help the brown people of the country. Well, the companies are going to just fire them. They're going to go to other ways to supply their customers with the services they need, and they're
Yeah,
just
I think that was called slavery, right? Didn't they use that as an alternative pay system at
right.
some point? You know, because it was
Yeah.
cheaper. They probably
So
made the same I'm sure they were making the same arguments, right? Like, you can't free these slaves because we can't pay people.
yeah.
All the businesses will go elsewhere, you know, where slavery is acceptable.
When we free them, where are they going to go? They're going to need houses. They don't have any money, you
It's
know.
kind of like, you know, how people argue that men shouldn't be able to have a vote about abortion because it's not a male body issue. You know,
Mhm.
females should be the only ones to vote for that. Well, the rich voting about poverty issues should not be allowed, right? Why should they be able to vote on this? Like, go to the people that this is their life experience, ask them what would be the most helpful for you, and, you know, let them vote on it.
Well, it's going to hurt Bezos's bottom line. It's going to hurt the
Probably
grocery
too.
store. And the meme that I saw was, we've heralded the grocery workers as heroes, but we're not going to raise their rates. We're you know
It's that
they,
way across it's a way that way across the country with helping professions, though. Teaching, social work, all these things, none of them pay, you know.
HEB saved our lives here in Texas. If they hadn't done the curbside delivery, we would have all starved. There would have been, yes, we had 2 days of no toilet paper, but that got sorted out. Okay, 2 months of no hand sanitizer, and but they provided us with kolaches by the end of the week, and I'm thankful for them and all the young kids that maybe thankfully, because when you were young you thought you were invincible, you know in your up until about 26. When did that end? When did the veil of invincibility start to fade
I
for you?
never really again, I'm from Kentucky. Like, I came from no money and no education and everything. So I always knew I was invincible. I always knew somebody could vince me, you know, if they
Yeah,
wanted to.
I
Like, I
mean,
know what it means to live in America with no money.
the state motto is, "Hey y'all, watch this," and I get it.
But, you know, like,
So
living in this country with no money, you are constantly vulnerable, and you know it.
mhm,
Like, anything goes wrong and you can't do anything about it. You know, you're so susceptible to all the institutional forces, the legal forces, the police, everything. You know, like, the pandemic is a weird thing because it's the first time the middle class in recent history has taken that kind of full on poverty hit, like that kind of fragility of life, you know. And it's not like we're just helping the people, like the stimulus, which is just survival money. It's
right.
not stimulating anything. It's the first time we've had to look and go, hey, the middle class needs some of its money back. You know,
Yeah,
everything went away, and the rich are going, nah, you don't. I don't think you need that. I don't think you need your money.
it's a collective sorrow. All of us are going through it, so everyone is affected in one way or another. But the housing crisis, that was well, you shouldn't have bought that house so expensive, and so it was easy to discount the people that were going through some troubles because they had gotten themselves into it. But it's not it's I mentioned GameStop. It's not getting it in, getting themselves into it. It was kind of like following this, oh, fear of loss, Everyone else is buying a house. Oh, it's the American dream to own a house. I've got to own a house. I can't qualify. Oh, I can with this junk loan? Well, then get me in it. And then boom, George Bush doesn't lower the rates or raise the rates at all. The market tanks, and then here we are.
Yeah, but that's, like I said, that's the power of rhetoric. I tweeted something this morning about if you want to see like the enduring power of American rhetoric and all the little sub threads and sub strands of American rhetoric, which are so embedded in this culture and which dominate people's thoughts and behaviors and communities, look no further than this crazy Marjorie Taylor Greene being able to make it to Congress, become a congresswoman by just parroting gun talk, which comes from early American rhetoric that the reason we were able to escape British tyranny was because of personal gun possession. And it's literally a rhetoric that got embedded back then, and we've been using it ever since. And she's just saying that script. And that was enough to get this clearly mentally ill person, at least mentally compromised person, into Congress because the rhetoric is so strong. And all you got to do is run the script. And that's when you were talking about God earlier. You started into that. It's just a highly scripted world. And if you want to live in that world or use the people that are already in that world, you just talk that script.
Yeah, it's they want to take your guns. God, well, and then I don't know if we ever discussed at length my time working at a Christian radio station.
Did not. I know. I remember you said you did that, like when we were doing the podcast before the Geometry.
My desire to work in radio was so strong that I took any job, and so I found myself behind the board producing pre-recorded broadcasts, and some of the things that stuck with me. There's this one guy, he'd be like, and the devil exists because Muslims exist. That is a sermon that we play every Sunday, or we played. I don't work there anymore. And then the other one that it's right about now, because they're going to have the National Day of Prayer coming up. It's the pro-life movements thing, and it's in the book of Peter, I believe. There's something
There's
there.
no book of Peter.
Okay, Paul or something. I don't know. Peter, Paul, and Mary. Is it something like
that? They came up with some Bible tunes. Those three.
They did. But their thing is they believe that Jesus will not come back until all the abortions are stopped. So that is, I mean, they are waiting. There is a large segment of the Christian population that is actively waiting for Jesus to come back. And they believe that we are all hindering it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they're right. We all decided to, keep the world, a little as ugly as we can to keep Jesus away. It doesn't sound like it's going to be good when Jesus comes back. I'll tell you that. It sounds like a bad day to me.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to take it.
I was really hoping it was going to happen on this December was the first time that Jupiter and Saturn aligned, and we were going to have the Christmas star, and I was like, if of all times, this is it. Let him come back now. Let him come back. And instead, he came to me, and now he's in me. I am Jesus now.
You are Jesus.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Don't tell
anybody. Friends are a while. Don't remember we've been friends.
Yeah.
Don't be too bad to me when you figure out where to send me for all eternity.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I've always thought that it's completely unfair that you live like a good length of life is 80 years. That would be, most people are happy at 80.
Yeah.
That much. And then you're dead for all eternity. It doesn't seem like the natural state for a human being is dead.
Yeah.
Like being alive is the unnatural stage.
Well, is it dead or just non-existent?
No, don't get my technical. Don't get you technical in my joke. We're dead way longer than we're alive, and that just doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Well, like dead for 80 years, I could handle.
Can I ask a follow-up? Are we dead before we're born?
Well, we're non-existent.
Okay.
We're not corporeal. In this, who cares? Okay. My point being,
in the timeline of, because we could go to a cemetery and see somebody that died in 1776, and they have been dead longer than they were alive.
3 times as long. They've been dead for like 250 years, and we're just looking at them going, man, but that's a long time to be dead.
The guy's been dead, man.
He's good at it.
He's very good at being dead. I'd probably be great at being dead. But that's not one I'm ready to try on yet.
How old
I
are you,
want
Jimmy?
I'm 45, and I learned from the high school janitor after football practice what I want to do. He said it. He was like, "Boys, when I die, I want to die on the upstroke, so I can give it to her one last time on the way down." Now, I didn't even know what that meant. I was a freshman in high school, and I'd only been making out and
Your
maybe,
janitor said this to you.
yeah, yeah. And
What was
but
he thinking about all day long while he's moving that mop?
the the one last time. So yeah, Dan, we're in a crazy world where what I'm worried about is the unknown and the people that believe in the unknown. So,
So yeah, mystical stuff. Whenever you wander into that, like, so one of the courses that I've got set up over at Rhetoric Warriors is converting conservatives.
mhm.
Okay, and so
Have you gotten any blowback? Like, are people fighting you? Like, it's like homosexual conversion therapy. Like, this is very controversial, right? Con-
conversion.
converting MAGA to a right thinking or centrist thinking person, right?
I didn't say what I'm converting them to. I just said I'm
Uh,
converting them.
okay,
Maybe I'm going to make them worse.
maybe.
um, my thing, like with politics, like I try to, again, rhetoric gives you some options that other people don't usually use, but try to escape political rhetoric because it's just a trap. Like as soon as you start left, right, liberal, conservative, those are traps. Those are linguistic traps. And so, like I tell people, like I've started my own party, the Comedian Americans
Hmm.
Party. So I vote for the funniest person. I vote the person that'd be most fun to hang out with at a bar.
Hmm.
That got some ability to entertain up there, and I think we'd be better off if we all just voted that way. And conservatives, my problem with conservatives, within that system is that they're just not very fun.
Right.
They tend to squash the jokes.
Oh, and it's all I see the levers in the background. And we just got this new city council member who, yeah, she's got a couple ideas up there that I've heard come out of her mouth. I even interviewed her on my old podcast that I had to leave because it just got too MAGA crazy. Um, but she is pushed and she's been elevated by certain groups and they're the Save Austin group, so they're trying to criminalize homelessness again and all this stuff. So it's the Green, Marjorie Green Taylor or whatever her name
Mm-hmm.
is. She didn't get there on her own. She was was so affected that somebody saw her as a tool
Well,
and
they actually have training schools, and a lot of these people are coming through. And the Democrats have started doing this too, which is a good idea. But the right has been much more organized for the last 30,
Mhm,
40 years about its politics. And they have recruitment schools that, they identify somebody that can talk decently in public and is crazy enough to go after, a political election position. And they do some training with them and they, get them sort of prepped and they give them some support. And then they push them out into these races. So they're never doing it on their own. They're never like AOC on the other side came from a training school, like a not so much a school, but like a program set up to support people who want to get into politics
mhm,
that are identified as having some political talent. And so that's great. That's what American politics is supposed to be. It's supposed to be everybody working hard to get their stuff into the world. My problem with the right isn't always with the content of their beliefs. It's with the unethical persuasion techniques they use to get them into the world.
mm,
Like, for example, just slander.
mhm,
The right uses slander as a major tactical weapon in politics. And like you just did a little while ago, where you're like, you're taking our guns and all that. It's just a slander position because nobody is doing that. And so they've
right.
weaponized that and made it part of their party. And as a rhetorician, I'm like, no, 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 you can't talk like that in America because it'll ruin all our public discourse streams. It corrupts and pollutes everything. So you end up getting people who believe crazy stuff because it's in the public discourse.
Right.
And that's dangerous. So we need to get rid of that.
And it's all misunderstanding or not. And then I don't want to say do your research like that. That now,
Good luck. Good luck doing your research.
do your research is now
Yeah, it's a
the
MAGA
cry.
attack.
Yeah, that they're like, well, you just haven't done your research. I'm telling you, all you need is vitamin D. These masks, they will kill you. These masks will kill you. What? Why do doctors wear them? Do you know how small that molecule is? There's no cloth that can hold that molecule. The molecule's in your spit. Your spit's big enough to get caught in that. No, do your research. Hey,
Yeah,
look,
I don't do logic conversations with the right because they're
get
caught in
lost.
skew logic.
And they'll do the whataboutism, and then they'll be like, well, what about our email? I mean, like it'll go so off tangent, and then you're fighting 9 battles. It's brilliant that they've trained all of their all the people to do this. And then
It's really, but it's really not like it's very easy to look and see what they've done. I mean, they've got a top down communication system that the
Mhm.
left doesn't have. So the think tanks come up with scripts. They come up with
Right.
all the terms. Like they'll put out every day. They're putting out these massive, basically folders of here's 100 arguments pro gun.
Right.
And they'll pick a few of them and tell the politicians to push these in public. They'll hand them out, and the TV stations will start using those scripts. And so what happens is the people down here who are watching that media are just absorbing that script
Mhm.
and then re-saying it. So they're not thinking their way through those scripts,
Right.
but they're being given professionalized scripts, which
Right.
is why it's sometimes hard to argue with them because they sound like they're making real points.
Right.
But if you know argument, you know how to work through logic a little bit. If you can slow them down, because the other thing they do, an unethical technique, is they blitzkrieg. It's what I call it, just sort of this blare. Hit the horn and don't let up, and they blast, and so they won't slow down. And you can't do logic on blast.
Well, did you, as a rhetorician, you also studied debate, right? Did you
Sure.
ever, were you on the debate team?
No, I never did any of that. My high school didn't have any of that stuff.
Okay. Well, we had it. I was on the debate team, and then one year we had the resolution like the United States should significantly increase space exploration, right? And then you were either for or against, and you just kind of walked in, you drew a number, and you were told if you were for or against. But we had this guy on our team. He was just like that. Remember the guy that used to sell Nissans? He'd be like, the fast talking guy. He would do that. If we were going against, he would be like, no, we can't do it. It's expensive. Bone density. There's radiation out there. There's no resources, so it's a waste of time. And then aliens. And then so they fight each one of those, but right at the end, they never conquered plus then aliens will know where we are and they'll come and kill us, and then if they don't conquer that, we win. So that's the style that I think Kayleigh McEnany used to have at the podium. Just let me talk as fast as possible, and then at the end say, by the way, your God is not valid, and then they win.
Yeah, but that's unethical debate.
Mm-hmm.
That's debate using technique in order to win, as opposed to what debate is supposed to be, which is us co-working towards good ideas and good solutions. Right. So if you are perverting the discourse to win something, then you're an unethical persuader.
How do we do it then? Like number one, we need like a reset. Like we need a come to Jesus moment. Like
why is it always bad? It sounds like Jesus has a baseball bat.
I know. Well, look, 9/11 was a moment where we all came together.
I call it
right?
20.
What?
9/11. I call it 20.
Oh, you just added. So 20 was that's a hard one to get everyone to buy in on. But that we all came together, and we had flags that we bought from China and put them in our yards, and there was a moment there, but then it shifted again, and then because you need somebody to blame, and an outside force is only good for a while, and then we start to look within. um we're a messed up country, in the sense that capitalism has really screwed us up in all of our messages, right? So
Well,
uh
it's everything is fighting everything. This country is, they call it a melting pot. I call it a melting pit.
okay, yeah, yeah,
Dump everything in there and then just be like, my God, look at that.
yeah,
Capitalism is trying to figure out how to live with like Christianity. And you saw those merge, in
right,
the evangelical movement of like the liturgy of prosperity,
yeah,
which is beautiful. Like Christianity is a poverty religion. The founder was a poverty, proponent, like,
uh-huh,
and now it's a prosperity religion, like because they melded.
right,
And America is so many different rhetorics. It's so many different, you know, uh, dreams and stories and logics and everything else, just mixing together. The question is like, how do you ever get anything to emerge out of it and become a really dominant, piece of rhetoric that people can hold on to? And the right has done a lot of that. Like guns, very clear. Like guns are a clear thing.
right.
Abortion, super clear. Nobody likes abortion
Nobody.
on either side,
No.
but the question is, do you, both sides are right. Yes, ending a human life, whatever stage it's at, not positive. We don't, no, nobody's for that.
Mm,
Telling a woman that she's got to do something with her body, nobody's for that.
right.
Like we can't do anything else. Like, hey, you need bigger boobs. We're going to pass a resolution
Yeah.
that all women must have boobs over,
C's. Yeah.
C's or
Yeah.
D's or whatever. Nobody would ever do that. So both sides are right.
But then there'd
But
be an island of B's, like there, and then I'd probably find a way to sequester myself over on B Island, because I don't really need a C. Um, I'm fine with a good healthy B. Fine with an A. You know what? Just
just you're
call.
fine with
Just
the
pay
female
attention to
body,
me.
anybody.
Yes, I'm so lonely. Um,
There's a story yesterday. Selma Hayek is just signed with, is it maybe HBO? Somebody's developing a show based on a book.
You're
Maybe it's
talking
a,
about the one with what's his name, Ronnie Howard or Owen Wilson?
maybe, I don't know. It was, but her boobs talk to her.
Oh, okay. This is a different, different project. I'm into this. Okay.
Yeah, this one got my attention. I'm like Selma Hayek, who's a very, attractive actress, and so
It's not look who's talking boobs.
look who's talking to. That'd be interesting to see. But
Interesting.
nobody, is going, no, even men are going to back down this idea that I should be able to tell a woman what to do with her body, except for abortion.
For me, it's always been a slippery slope. If the government can restrict a procedure, then they could also say, "Hey, everybody, line up. We're putting chips in you." Or they could say, like everybody's like, "What are they going to do? Mandatory vaccinations?" No, dude, because we've made it perfectly clear we live in a free society, and it's your choice to die or not.
But it's not like
Unless,
there.
well, yeah, if you put
It's
a gun
going
to
to be
your
their
head,
choice to, get everybody else infected or not.
you put a gun to your head in the middle of the street, they're going to stop you from killing yourself, but they can't force you to vaccinate. But you can maybe, this is how capitalism. We need to figure out how to use capitalism to our benefit. So it's
I agree with
okay.
that statement.
You don't have the vaccine, you can't go to Disney World. You can't go to the Weezer concert because you don't have a vaccine. Now, I like we can tattoo on people's arms. Probably a bad idea. From your facial reaction, I'm
I would
thinking that.
say that one's it's a little
Yeah. Okay.
compromised by history.
So that's what everybody's worried about. Like the government's controlling us, but at the same time, they're totally fine fighting for the government to control us, right?
Well, and again, that's the issue. Like I tend to use sometimes the visual of a pie graph, like with lots of pie
Pie.
slices in it.
What kind of pie? Are we talking chocolate pie?
I would say sweet potato pie.
Okay. All
I have
right.
a great story about sweet potato pie. I'll tell you here at the end before we get out. But think of it has 50 slices in it, and every issue has 50 slices,
Right.
right? So, like gun laws, one slice is bazookas.
Okay.
You can't have a grenade launcher legally in this country, right? Like, there's a
Well,
certain caliber that we don't allow.
right.
But why? The
Yeah.
Second Amendment says I can own a weapon. I should be able to own a nuke.
And I have friends that have gone through the hoops that have the semi or the fully auto weapons. They have a is bazooka or a AR with a grenade launcher. They are able to do that because you have to become a gun dealer and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in insurance or bonds or something to get some of this stuff and pass background checks. It's worth it to them. To me, I got these. I got I
Well,
got
I
these.
think those need, some licensing right there.
Oh,
One
yeah.
fist of iron, the other is steel.
I'd let you
Right one
go,
don't
but
get you.
the boys got a mind of their own.
I've
That's
seen
what
you.
I should
I've
have
seen you
said to that.
ball those up. I've seen you. I've seen you get all up on your back, going, at a taping. I think it was when somebody got too close to your camera.
Oh, did I? Yeah. I almost killed somebody on Monday. I quit smoking Monday, and I had a customer who was surprised that I was going to charge him something for looking at his car, and I went from 0 to 100 in a second. Could have used some smart words there, but my luckily my boss walked in and kicked me out. And I said, why'd you kick me out? He said, I need you for the rest of the day, and I couldn't afford to take time off to bail you out from jail. So
That's real, man. Conflict, like rhetoric, words are better. They
yeah,
keep you out of jail. Like you almost can't get thrown into jail for the words, But when you go to alternative systems of negotiation, they get you.
there's consequences. Well, and we ultimately would have probably ended up buying him a new vehicle from the resulting lawsuit. So I'm
And I'm
I'm
not
glad
saying they
that
don't deserve it. Human beings are
mm,
infuriating. The way they do things is completely, wrong.
but this
Always,
is
almost,
this is why I look to you as my sage. Help me with my rhetoric. I need to constantly work on it because I'm getting older and I heal slower, and and I can't be relying on. I mean, people think I'm scary because of this gruff
Yeah.
appearance, this outward appearance. But I'm a teddy bear, Dan. I want
Well,
all the
and
way
that's
to
the
the
thing I've
center.
always said about you is that you're, sweet natured, but you got a trigger.
Mm,
But
mhm.
it's not. I don't see that trigger very often. Maybe
No,
now that you're not smoking, I would see it more. But
no, I had some today. Um, we're
I
working
had
on
some
it.
today.
Yeah. I I have hope though for this country. I'm seeing I'm seeing already a kind of a switch in the way that we're talking to each other. Maybe it's because most of the folks that have been pissing me off on social media have been banned or they've gone to, well, what's the new one? They got kicked off Parlor. There's like it's Outdoors or something. Oh,
There's a few.
Clubhouse. Clubhouse is the new one. I'm looking
No,
for.
no, Clubhouse is not that. Clubhouse
Oh,
is like I got on Clubhouse like 3 days ago.
oh, send me
Clubhouse
an
is just a
invite.
bunch of marketers.
Is that all it is? It's just just nothing but influencers influencing each
Yes,
other.
it's just influencers trying to come up with something to say to get other influencers, and I'm like, I'm looking because I think I like the idea of it. That basically it's you listening in on a conversation
Yeah.
with 3 or 4 people who are supposed to know something, and then you can try to get on stage with them by waving, and if they let you in, then you can talk.
Okay.
And I like to listen to smart talk, but I haven't heard a word of it on Clubhouse yet. I'm waiting for some smart talkers to get on there.
Huh. Interesting. You got to send me an invite because I'm just sitting there waiting to get on it. I want to
I'll do
figure
it
it
as
out.
soon as we get done. I got 4. They gave
I
me
mean,
4 today. I got new invites.
I gotta protect my name. There was a Jimmy Preston wrestler out there, and I heckled him into the point of he changed his wrestling name, I think. So, leave me alone. It's my name. I was James Neal for 24 hours, but I'm James Preston Atkins. Go by Jimmy Preston. Now that I've announced it, they're probably going to cancel my Facebook account. They're going to be
Jimmy
like, "Oh,
Preston's a good name. That's solid.
well, I as a little kid, I said, if I'm ever an actor, I'll be James Preston. If I'm on the radio, I'll be Jimmy Preston. And I was on the air before I was in front of the camera. So it's kind of stuck. So,
Yeah, I like it. You're Jimmy Preston, whether you're a wrestler or not, to me, you're going to stay
oh,
Jimmy Preston.
and the move from Dan Britton to Damned French was a good move for you. I think it's you should stay with that.
My daughter's in France right now for her senior year of college. She's doing, she goes to the University of North Texas, and she's doing a year abroad to finish up. And she was telling me that in France, you say your last name first.
Okay.
And so she has to tell people, "Hi, I'm French Quincy." And she's like, they look at me like I'm insane. It'd be like saying, "Hi, I'm America Dan."
Yeah, you are.
Yeah,
you are, Dan. You are America Dan.
I'm America Dan. So,
yeah.
Well, it's been fun, man. There's so much more to talk about. I'm going to circle back around with you. Everybody I talked to, and I'm like, yeah, we got like another 10 hours we could talk. So,
right. Well, I hope I didn't lead us through too much of a. Well, I didn't lead anything, but it's propel you into too many tangents. I
no, awesome. Your good stories, good idea. You always have things to say. I always enjoy talking to you. So, all good, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And where can people find you? What's your podcast?
It's called The Least We Could Do. It's on Saturday nights from 8 to 10 Central Standard Time. It was just after coming out of mushroom induced haze. I said, you know what, I do need to reconnect with society, and I can't just cocoon during this time. And so it's supposed to be funny. We do talk about some serious stuff sometimes, but it's fun. So
I'm sure it's worth it. You're always worth listening to.
You can always email us at the.least.we.could.do.show@gmail.com.
That sounds like the most you could do, the most periods you can get into a sentence.
So many periods.
Hilarious. Well, thanks for listening, everybody, to the Rhetoric Warriors podcast. Head over to rhetoricwarriors.com, learn some persuasion, take a course. You'd be amazed at how much more effective you are when you actually know some things before you launch into this activity. Like you wouldn't walk into the tiger cage without your sequins, right?
Right.
You got to get prepared before you take on those tigers. So we will see you next time. Thanks a lot, Jimmy.
Thanks, Dan.